Mandatory.
I've got my money down here.
Yeah. Ooh, bringing some like shakers in. All right, we are live. Welcome, Taylor, to another Soul Connection call. This is our second Soul Connection call we've done, and I'm so thrilled that you're a return guest in 2024. Because your conversation definitely stood out to me. I know from some of the people who watch, they shared that the episode was really useful for them. So here we are back to have another conversation. So, Taylor, if you just go ahead and orient yourself to our audience, tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Taylor. I'm an emotional response guidance. I'll just say guide. I think we've really gone away from the word coach and really focusing on guide, partner, co-pilot. I love all of those words really resonate with me. And I work with souls who are in emotional stress responses in their day-to-day lives. And usually those are deeply rooted into from our childhood or somewhere in our early adolescence. And so I work with these individuals to what we really do is self-discovery. And through that process, we're able to refocus and rewire our pathways so that we can really live a connected and expanded existence.
Yes. Oh, and I love that you're focused on the expansion too. Yes, Taylor and I had a conversation on, I think it was on your wall, like on a post you had put up
Yeah.
about the word guide, because I had this aha moment really over the holidays in the transition into the new year where I was like, coach isn't it for me. It's guide, because you and I are the kinds of people we like to literally like be holding our clients' hands, walking through, like asking them, do you want to step over here or do you want to step over here? Like I'll help you either way, but not like so focused on this is the metric that you've got to get to.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, I love the model. So I too am a guide, the queer
Yeah,
spirit
for
guide.
sure. I had a business coach to explain it so well for me. And when she said it, I just had this like explosion of like, yes. And what she had said to me was, I'm your guardrail. Basically, I hold
Mm,
you while you take your risks and do the things. And, I'm your safe space. I'm your place.
I
So
love
yep,
that.
that is it.
Beautiful. So, yes, we're both guides. And today we're going to be talking about self acceptance and worthiness and some of these things that, especially after we were kind of out of our traumatic situation, or maybe we're still in a trauma, like an ongoing thing, but we're having that like opening awareness of, I want to treat myself better.
Mhm.
I know deep down under there that I'm worthy, but I'm struggling to access that. So today we want to give some tools and just have a conversation about ways to step into more self acceptance, more worthiness, self regulation, maybe some nervous system regulation. We're just going to have a good time. So, Taylor, when you think about like the simplest tool that you can think of, like I'll give an example. So the simplest tool that I can think of that I always love to give clients is the 360-degree, like looking down slowly and like checking what's under you, what's above you, what's behind you, and like just starting to slow this down, because we have to start somewhere getting present.
Yes.
And looking around our environment like this communicates to our nervous system like, I'm not being chased by a tiger. I'm not
Mhm.
actually in danger. Like, it's okay for me to uh, slow down for a second and establish my safety. And that tool, so many people have told me, like, oh my gosh, that was transformative immediately, because it does have an immediate effect in the nervous system just to slow it down and, like, okay, there's no actual danger right now.
Yeah.
So, do you have a tool like that that's like your go to that you usually offer to people?
I love that. It's really about yes, I offer a few tools, but like what you're describing to me sounds like just like using your senses, just
Hmm.
like tuning into whichever one feels right to you. I like to always start with the main five before you tune into the sixth one. But yeah, it's so important to it sounds a bit cliche, but maybe a bit cliche for me now, but beforehand it's breathing
Yeah.
is just breathing from a science perspective, from holistic perspective, from every perspective. The core of regulating is always breath. And I remember when I first started using the breathing tool, I had a lot of resistance with it. But like, you mean now I use breathing tools throughout my day, but
Right.
beforehand it was like, how often would you just stop and think, oh, I'm breathing? You don't really do that. But breathing, stretching, I always, there's a way that you can calm your nervous system by just moving your torso, just by moving your body, using your hands. And I love when you get to learn some of these tools because they're, actually you can really access them at any time. Once they're in your toolbox, they're free. You have free tools. You can use your body to regulate itself. And I think
Yes.
it's just so powerful. I find myself, um, even now in just a lot of the world that we live in, there is so much that's out of our control. So I still find myself being activated throughout the day by many things. And so,
The world.
yeah,
See the world.
absolutely. And I still manually bring awareness to the activation. I ask myself, is this worth my peace? And if some of these immediate tools I use don't work, then, I definitely always move to my breath and just, when I'm out in public, sometimes I'll just be breathing like crazy. Just leave me alone. I'm regulating.
Yes, like the breath is just thinking about my own trajectory through the healing world. I ended up taking a breathwork apprenticeship. We were apprenticed to the breath for a year pretty
Mm,
much. And we had an instructor who had studied. It was all about the uh trauma healing implications of the breath that we can use and how to use it in different ways. But over that year, I noticed how much I wasn't breathing,
mhm.
right? Like that was huge. And then two, realized how much it does provide a quick regulation strategy. And so some of the simplest breathing exercises are like the box breathing. I really like, I'm going to say this because a lot of people teach breath work without knowing the therapeutic implications of it.
Yes.
And the pause at the top of the breath is activating to their nervous system. So if
Mhm.
you're already activated, don't pause at the top of your breath. So box breath is usually like you breathe in, you pause, you breathe out, you
Mhm.
pause. I like to teach triangle where it's breathe in, breathe out, and pause at the bottom because pausing at the bottom on the bottom of the exhale is nervous system regulating downward, whereas
Mm.
the pause at the top is regulating upwards. So that's just a little thing that we might not even be aware of in breath work is like, because in yoga and stuff, not everyone is teaching breath work from that, like, oh, you're in trauma and you might need to regulate your nervous system. They're just teaching a big class, right? So some of the tools that we learn, we need to figure out how to modify for ourselves or how to help it do what it needs to do for our situation and our nervous system instead of what's taught to everyone.
That's such an important distinction. I love that because, like, even for myself, just like asking yourself the question or figuring out what does your audience need, or even before you start the breath work, are we activating or are we regulating?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
there's three types of breaths that we were taught. Either a coffee breath, right? A coffee breath activates us and lifts us up. A water breath is just sort of neutral, like you're just hydrating with the breath, right? Or a whiskey breath, which is slowing things down and actually down regulating. And so you can imagine if you're hyperventilating, if you're breathing a lot, that's going to activate you and push you up. If you're breathing really slowly, that's going to regulate down. So that's a simple, like, just changing the pace of your breathing even can be a huge tool. And just like you said, Taylor, it's once you have these tools in your toolkit, they're there forever. They're free now, but you have to practice them.
Yeah. Oh, yes, the integration. It's been so transformative for me just with the traumatic experiences that I've been through in my life. There are a lot of times in every day where my inner child is like, we're not safe. And even just having these tools with me to just like, oh, I can breathe, just like coming home to myself is
Hmm.
just, that's been wildly helpful, super helpful.
Absolutely. I like to use the metaphor because metaphors to me really help hit things home, of driving a bus. And any of the tools that we talk about today, or any tool that you learn, if you've never driven a bus before and you are in an emergency and you are required to drive the school bus full of burning children to the hospital or something, you're not going to know what to do if you've never driven the bus before. You're going to freak out. You're going to panic because now it's an emergency and you don't know how to use the tools that are in front of you. So, practicing in advance, even if you're not already dysregulated, like when you're actually in a really good emotional state or you're feeling really neutral, that's a great time to actually practice these things because
Mhm.
then you know how to use them when the emergency comes and your nervous system's like, ah, like I don't know
Totally.
what to do. Then you're like, oh, wait, I tried that breathing exercise back then and it worked. Let me try it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to equate healing, or we're just using, breathing in this example as like food. There's a lot of, you hear a lot very frequently, oh, I tried this food, but I didn't like it. So I'm not going to eat healthy foods. They all taste the same. And it's really like trying new foods. You're figuring out what works for your body. It's always a trial and error process. And you take what resonates and then you move on to the next. There are certain breath work that I have that doesn't work for me. And if I do something too late in the night, I usually fall asleep. You get to know your body. And
Hmm.
something that's been what you were talking about, how when you're in that normal state is a really good place, or that regulated state, not normal state, is a really good place to practice and maybe to even test that muscle and activate it and then bring yourself back to test it from that intentional place.
Right.
And I have definitely been making space for that a lot by really committing myself to reset breath work. And I have just like shed so many tears
Hmm.
in that process. And sometimes I have really strong visions during it.
Wow.
Sometimes it's just about being, because you get so caught up in the everyday must do things, that just taking that 1 hour space to activate and regulate and just let yourself be and appreciate your body and what it does for you is that's I've had so much healing being able to do that as well. So for people who are um if you're new to breath work, I definitely recommend just slowly starting to just focus on your breathing, bringing awareness to it. But as you get more advanced and more curious in what breathing can do for you, I highly recommend using reset breath work as a form of healing.
Yeah, that's it's so important to recognize that as we're making these changes, we want to do them gently, right? We
Mhm.
want to start with our baseline and get aware of our own baseline and then start layering on or slowly shifting things because in nervous system regulation when we try to, and this is for anything, this goes beyond breath work, right? If you try to
Mhm.
start something new that's so totally like 180 different from what you're doing and you push towards that result too much, the nervous system will actually freeze and not allow the progress to happen because we're designed to stay safe in our status quo. So when we're challenging the status quo, we have to go about it super slowly, right? So it might be, if we're using breathwork as the example, like 3 minutes of intentional breathing a day where you're not doing any instruction, you're not trying anything new, you're just staying with your breath. What's it like to breathe?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
letting it
I
go.
love to incorporate the 1% rule with this, because some people are like, 1%, I can do more than that. It's like, great. Yeah. Now you know your threshold. But if you give yourself just 1% every day, like you're saying, maybe you're integrating a practice of 1 to 3 minutes of, maybe I'm just going to even set a timer for 1 to 3 minutes, and I'm just going to be and
Mhm.
go in and just focus on my breathing. Great. And then you can reflect on that 1 to 3 minutes, adjust, and do something different the next day. I love that.
Yeah. I love the idea of the 1% too, because I've talked with clients about anything more than 0% is more than 0%, right? You're beating on yourself because you're at 0%. So, what could we
Mhm.
do beyond 0%? 1% is totally good.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. That's wonderful because it's still that more than I'm completely checked out. I don't have any self worth. I'm not accepting my situation at all. So, if we can invite in 1% of acceptance or 1% of worthiness or 1% of breathing during the day consciously, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. It's those little tiny steps that actually have the greatest impact, not trying to leap from 0 to 10. because we usually fall down in that and then we bully ourselves like, oh, look, I tried and I face planted and now I'm never going to do it again.
Right. You
So,
get right back into the cycle.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Whereas if it's like 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, it's like it stacks. And sure enough, soon we're at 10%. We're like, wow,
Oh my
huh,
gosh, it gets really exciting. I think it's even really powerful too, is for me, what's been really helpful and clients I work with, it's just really helpful is documenting what you're doing. So if you're document your 1%, you commit to this for 30 days. Well, if you're us, you commit to it every day, but like, you commit to a new exercise for 30 days and you write down, what was my 1% today towards self-acceptance? What does this look like for me? How can I practice this? Then you do it. You write it down, right? You take a half a page every day for 30 days and you can just go back and it's just, wow. And it only took me 10 minutes every day to integrate this new tool.
yeah. And it is those baby steps that truly like we get the most satisfaction from. We're able to stay present with it. It's not overloading the system and we don't want to overload the system. Like the world is already overwhelming enough out here, right? So coming back into this interior state and like what we have control of in our own bubble is so important.
Mhm.
So when we set this topic up as self-acceptance. And I
Mhm.
was thinking like what are tools for self-acceptance? So obviously landing in the moment, bringing ourselves to presence actually expands our tolerance of the now and can lead
Mhm.
to more self-acceptance. But like what have been some of the other tools that you've used in your own journey? Because I mean, I know we both have had our own self-acceptance and worthiness journey,
Oh,
right? It's a
yeah. Absolutely.
long trajectory,
Mhm.
but what have stood out for you as things that either helped you accept yourself or when you're feeling a challenging moment, like a trigger or something coming up in the moment that you're able to anchor back into?
Yeah, I'm so glad you worded it like that. So I think it's an internal and external exercise. It's also a give and receive exercise, and it's also an embody and release exercise. So I think there's like all of these things happening at once, which could be interesting to dissect those even further down a different time. Um, but I think what's coming to mind right now are just like categories of things that involve self-acceptance. Like your environment can impact your ability to have self-acceptance. The who you're connecting with, the people that you surround yourself with, have a lot to do with self-acceptance. Um, Looking at it from an independent perspective, a lot of my deeply rooted places of self acceptance have come from very common feeling, of course, a topic of this conversation, feeling worthy enough to
Mm,
have what I desire. And I think, in order to have worthiness, you have the worthiness, and that illuminates and just, I think that just like organically brings self acceptance when you feel
right.
worthy. So for me, mirror work, do like actually standing in the mirror, clothed and unclothed, has been extremely powerful. And just being able to like, this is what I love about myself. Because so often when we're, looking at ourselves in the mirror, it's so easy to be like, oh, there's a zit and there's a that, and oh my gosh, a new wrinkle, or something.
All of the things.
Yeah, so I've been, waking up in the mirror, and even some of my clients have been loving this, where they'll look in the mirror and just practicing saying I love you. How easy or hard or resistant is it for you to just say that to yourself, or
Mhm.
maybe to even wish love for somebody else that you might not have a pleasant experience with. That I think that can also give an impact to self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Dancing has been huge for me.
Yes.
I just
I was like, please talk about this, Taylor.
Yeah, yeah, exercise. So I found, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I was in the place of the clients that I work with now, of like, I'm responding in a way to my day-to-day life that is not who I believe that I really am, but I don't know who the F that person actually is, and I don't know how to find that person. And so I just intuitively, I wasn't actually even on any social media back then. So I was really just riding the intuitive train for a lot of my life. And I found a big emotional response I have is fight.
Mhm.
It's a defense that I have. And so I wanted to start turning my negativity into positive action. And I found exercise. So I started working out, I started eating really healthy, and that led me to dancing. I'm like, I'm actually scared to dance. I was like, I would look at my body. I didn't love what I saw in the mirror. But I loved music and I wanted to start dancing. So I signed up for a pole class and I went in with this like grand attitude that I was like, I got this. And I was so embarrassed when I left there, but I took it on as a challenge because I'm like,
Yeah.
this is something that I really want to do for myself. I want to fall in love with my body again. And it doesn't have to be that you do for me. That was just, my
I
story.
think it's pretty kick-ass,
Oh my God,
TBH.
yeah. And so I committed to it. I committed to it every week, almost twice a week for 2 years. And then COVID hit and I was like, I'm still committed to this. And so I've turned a room in my house into a studio.
Which I just
Yeah.
adore. And Taylor posts, yeah, oh my gosh, it's literally right
That's
there.
right behind me.
Taylor posts incredible stories sharing the just your movement and your dance and your expression, and I can see the self-acceptance in that. Like
Yeah.
to get to that point of vulnerability of sharing it too really shows your tremendous growth.
Yeah. And
And
it's always freestyle too, is just I always let a free flow.
yeah, and
Mhm.
that's like whether you're doing pole or any form of dance, like I really resonate with that. When I was very trapped in my trauma, I didn't have so much a fight response. Mine was more freeze
Mm,
and flee is
yeah.
where I would go. And I remember just for years and years and years, like I'd be at events where people would dance and it would be this ecstatic, free form dance because it would be spiritual dance and just soul level expression, and I wouldn't let myself because I was too scared, too ashamed, too afraid. And now that's like a go-to for me if I'm feeling charged, like I
Mhm.
am stuck with a feeling, like I shake it out. I start just wiggling and jiggling. I put music on, like
You got to
something
move
to get
it.
the
You got to
body
move the
moving.
energy around. Yeah. I love it.
Huge. I think that that's a great strategy.
Yeah, I have that on my vision board for this year actually, is to be at a retreat and do a moonlit dance with the collective. I'm like, that
I
is just like,
love
yeah,
that.
I love body movement, however it shows up for you, whether it's pole or cardio or yoga or whatever. Maybe you just want to go for
Mine is just
a run.
in my living room or my
Maybe-
kitchen, just wiggling it out. Like,
Whatever it is. Yeah, it's so important to move energy around.
and when I think about just modern culture and society, we do live currently in a system that's pretty stagnant. Like, unless you are working construction or even like retail to some extent, but it's not like real movement. You're like doing tasks, you're on for other people, you're not moving for you. It's that getting into the inner world and being able to move that starts to move some of the trauma through.
Hmm.
And we know that we get stuck. We have stuck experiences of trauma in our nervous systems. And that movement, it's like a thawing, right?
Yeah.
It helps thaw some of that out of the system. And there's all kinds of great movement techniques for releasing trauma out there. So, yeah, like if you're listening to this, it does not have to be dance, it does not have to be exercise. It can be so many different forms of movement, but it's that intentionality that's the core piece of it. Like I'm intentionally allowing my body to move and just move through or out whatever needs to come and go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just get curious. Get curious about how you can move your body and just like tuning into what does feel good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I want to go back to the mirror work piece too, because that's something that I use as well, which I think is huge
Mhm.
for self acceptance and worthiness. is I like to write affirmations or mantras on my mirror so that when
Totally
when
have it. Yeah. Yeah.
when I'm doing my mirror work, I'm looking and I'm making eye contact with myself, but I'm also seeing my reminders of like, these are the key things right now that you're working on. And I find that I'll work with an affirmation sometimes for like 2 weeks or sometimes for 3 months. And eventually it will feel so ingrained that I don't need it there anymore. And I put something new up. And so
Yeah.
that's something to get curious about with yourself too, is like, where do I want to work on more self acceptance and worthiness? And then how do I know when I've reached that point of self acceptance and worthiness with this piece of me so that I can move on
Hmm.
and
I love
keep
that.
expanding?
I love that so much. I have like, okay, so intuitively, as you're speaking about affirmations and like also relating to self acceptance, there's like a really strong piece of this too, which is like if looking in the mirror, like, do you notice a resistance? Like some days when you're doing these affirmations, um, do you notice that some days you have more resistance with it than others, and some days it feels more natural to do it based on like, do the circumstances that you're going through affect your mirror work? And yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking as you were saying that. So I study this system called Body of Nine,
Hmm.
and it's about centers of leadership in the body. And natural number one is all about honoring. Like the gift of natural number ones is honoring others and seeing the perfect imperfection in them.
Yes.
And so natural number one, to activate, you lift through the sort of the back of the neck under the ears. The neck is nice and straight, and you're focusing on the muscles under the chin here. And you make a full minute of eye contact like this with either yourself in the mirror or with a person that you're connecting with.
Mhm.
Sometimes I get to like 30 seconds of this and I'm like, and we're out, right? Like I can't honor myself fully right now for whatever reason.
Aw, yeah.
And that is like, that usually invites me to go back to the mirror and kind of, what's going on here. And usually, so for me, I notice to this day, because I've done obviously a lot of trauma work and I was a trauma therapist for years, and like the self development journey is ongoing, but these days it's usually like my window of tolerance is sort of shrunk because of body pain or tiredness or like a family situation kind of happening on the side. And so the journey is really coming back to myself and being like, whatever you're feeling right now is okay. And you can
Mhm.
be with this feeling, right? Expanding that willingness to sit with the discomfort. But there's absolutely days where I'm like, I don't even want to look in the mirror. And it's like 10 seconds that I'm able to hold it before the resistance really is there. And then rather than forcing myself to stay with it, I will back out gently, kind of check in. Sometimes I'll let myself go move on with my routine. Sometimes that will be like, I'm going to go journal, right? Connect with myself in a different way, a more intellectual way, because mirror work is very vulnerable.
Mhm.
It's super vulnerable. And so, how can I come back into accepting my own vulnerability and that I'm worthy of that vulnerability for whatever reason? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a pretty universal thing, right? This resistance to
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
things.
I mean, yeah, and whatever result you get in the mirror, it's always telling you something, whether you're experiencing resistance, great, get curious. Or, today was a really good day for me. I looked in the mirror and I felt like a badass.
Well, bad bitch. Yeah, like there are days I look in the mirror and I'm like, look at you, hot stuff. Like, and I feel great and wonderful. And then there are days I'm like, not today, hun. Like, we're not doing this right now. And it, the worthiness and the self acceptance piece, such an important piece of it, is the not fighting ourselves or making it bad about us. Like, oh, you're bad because you can't look in the mirror right
Oh,
now.
yeah, minus
But
the
like,
judgment.
oh, okay. Right now, there's something coming up. Let me make space for it, make room to get curious about it. If I can't get curious about it right now, when can I? And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that when I would teach container. So, container is a method that I taught as a therapist and can be used by anyone. It's super simple for um, some self acceptance work if you use it properly. So, I'm going to talk
Sure.
about that. Container is literally in your mind's eye. You picture a container with a lid. The container should not be see-through. So if it's made out of glass, I just say frost the glass. And this special container is where you can siphon off body sensations, feelings, emotions that you can't, for whatever reason, handle right here, right now.
Mm.
And so I always take this moment and I'm like, okay, I'm taking, if it's frustration or fear, I'm taking that out of my body. I like to view it like steam billowing off of my body and into the container. Some people see it like sand pouring out of their hands. It doesn't matter. Harry Potter pensive, pull it out of your head, put it in.
Yeah.
But this like intentional, okay, now is not the moment to look at this. It's just not
Mhm.
appropriate for whatever reason, right? Maybe you're about to get on a call. Maybe you have to go to work. Maybe you're walking out in an unsafe situation and you can't be all riled up and triggered. So,
Mhm.
body sensations, emotions, thoughts that you can't look at right now, you put them in the container, you safely put the lid on and you put it away, and you set an intention of, I'm going to come look at you tonight. I'm going to come look at you tomorrow at 3 o'clock when I have my downtime. I'm going to look at you this upcoming weekend when I have the space to myself. Whatever it is that you're setting an intention of, I'm coming back to this.
Yeah.
Because when we're chronically dissociating and we're just like, I'm never going to look at it again. Nope, nope, nope. That's really hard to lead into self acceptance and worthiness, because you're basically saying, like, these
Well,
parts of me aren't worthy.
that's an emotional response of, that's avoidance, right?
Hmm.
And I think this is such a strong piece to this too, because if you have the awareness, the willingness, and the courage to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need, or whatever the tool is that you're using at that time, where you're noticing this place of, I'd like to improve upon this place or shift this place into something more desirable. It's, you do that work. And sometimes where I fall short for myself is I do the work and then I forget to celebrate. Forget
Hmm.
to celebrate that I did that really big thing that moved me forward, that propelled me in a way. So I really highly encourage that too. It's just like and that's a manual process for me too. I have to be like, okay, I did this work. This was
Yeah.
really powerful. How am I going to celebrate that? Because I'm personally driven by accomplishment. So I'm always like, on to the next thing, and I skip over the celebration. So I've had to rewire
Yeah.
my thought process of like, celebration can also be accomplishment and self-acceptance. When you're celebrating yourself, you're saying like, I accept this about myself too.
Right. And the
Mhm.
integration piece is something that most people miss. And I will say most people, because again, in my study of body of nine, natural number nines, which is the type I am, we're the only ones that sort of hold the natural codes for integration.
Yeah,
Everyone else is like, what does it mean to integrate? Like, huh?
yeah,
And integration is, it's that shavasana pose in yoga where you lay on the damn floor with your arms out to the sides and you're doing nothing. You're just like, okay, I did the practice. Yay. Like, we have to land. We have to literally be with like what we have done for ourselves so that it lands and we don't have to keep repeating it over and over and over again in the like processing way. Right now it's like, oh, the skill is a part of me. I've integrated that I can do this so I can do it in the future. Versus if we
mhm,
don't successfully integrate that, we forget that we had it there in the first place and we circle back around and we keep doing that. So something I like to, and I think this is great for worthiness, I think it's great for self-acceptance, is a positivity journal, where that journal is literally where you go and you put your accomplishments, you put the compliments you got, you put the rewards or the awards you got, and it's
yeah, I
just a
like that. I'm gonna
notebook.
write that down.
Yeah, I wish I had one right with me, but it's in my old office. And I like to do almost like scrapbook pages in it. Mine's just a
Mhm.
composition notebook. I made an acrostic poem with my name. I like literally have a page of like nice things my mom said to me. Like
Oh,
it's just like little things that I could go to look at and have that sense of positivity. Oh wow, look at all the things that have been wonderful for me, that I've either done for myself or someone else did for me, that really give me this positive feeling. And that's just a great way to also integrate it, because then it's this tangible, like
yeah.
whenever I, because 100% of people experience depression and anxiety. It is a normal part of our nervous system regulation. When we're anxious or when we're depressed, it's really hard to remember the middle ground and what that felt like. That's
Mhm.
just how our brain works. It's like we're in a different pocket of the brain. And so it's hard to access. So having this tangible notebook is like a shortcut. It's a tool, right? That we can flip open and we have, oh, right. That's what it was like when I had this feeling before. That's what it was like when I accomplished this or I finished that special task or whatever.
I love that. That's almost like a really healthy tool that you can also go back to. It's like a built-in tool. It's like if you find yourself in this dysregulated state, it helps you raise your frequency, helps you get you back to that spot. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah. I also love letters to yourself, like that
Mhm.
you write when you're in that middle space where you're not like activated or triggered, you're not low and like down in the dumps. You're literally like already calm and peaceful, but because you've done your own whatever your own patterns are, you've done them plenty of
Mhm.
times. So you can kind of look, where am I likely to go next? And let me write a letter to that person, just encouraging them kindly and gently
Yes.
to be with whatever's there, not fight it, resistant, all that good stuff, but to
Mhm.
land, to have that tangible reminder of, okay, you're here. Sorry, sorry, it's probably really tough right now. And here are some reminders of how amazing I am and you are, and all that good stuff. So I love that tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also like a more advanced tool, maybe that I've been using. You can hear my dog. Sorry, he's like crying for me. A more advanced tool that like I've been using too that has helped me with my self acceptance since I've been on this journey for over 5 years now. Of I've been writing down synchronicities, and
Mm,
when I'm working on like manifestations, getting really specific on what it is that I'm manifesting and monitoring the synchronicities of that manifestation in the coming weeks. And I have noticed just it's been so amazing. I've just been
yeah.
manifesting just opportunities within the connections that I have. Just really, my self acceptance um, is really part of it is really rooted in who I surround myself with. Who am I allowing into my space? And it's I've been very intentional about who I allow into my space. And what I've been receiving is exactly that. What I have been desiring and manifesting, it's because, I have this internal knowing, this internal discovery, these boundaries, these values that I have spent years identifying and
Hmm.
learning how to communicate and demanding really. And so now those are my affirmations. I look in the mirror and I'm like, they just start intuitively coming out. I used to start with like one affirmation and it was kind of hard for me to say. And now I write pages every day of just like things that just boil out of me. And it just feels so good to like, yes, this is where this work comes from. Like, wow, 5 years ago, this was like so hard to do, but like now it's just really easy. And I wish now I want to make hours in my day to do this work.
Yeah, it feels so good when we find that flow of the ability to pull through positivity for ourselves. It's if you're watching or you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine like effortlessly bringing affirmations through." Like Taylor and I are both saying we were not there, right?
Mhm.
In our past, it takes this dedication to that 1% a day, to that I'm just going to take a step. I'm just going to allow myself to lean in a little bit more towards myself and just open the possibility that maybe I'm worth it, right? That might be where you're at. You're like, I don't really believe I'm worth it, but maybe there's a possibility that I'm worth it. And that willingness to just start, one of my old instructors, actually my breathwork instructor, would say, like, the first step is being willing to be willing.
Yes.
That's the pre-work, being willing to be worthy.
Mhm.
And then we're willing to be worthy. And then we're actually actively working on stepping into that. And then we're there. But
Mhm.
we can't skip over the steps.
Yeah.
It
Well,
takes time.
the word that's coming up while you're saying this, like this act of being willing is like visualization or however that lands or resonates with you, but just you do have to it does start as like a dream or a wish or something, a desire in your mind, and you do have to start thinking about it, start thinking about the steps to transform that. Because sometimes if you're, some of my dreams are so big that even just thinking about is enough to activate my system. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, wow, okay, so that's a bit more than the 1% I can handle today.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, I get there a
okay.
lot.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we've activated that. Maybe I'll just, what's 1% of this? So I think that's
Mhm.
that's like a really good way to measure that too. You can sometimes just a thought can activate your system.
Yes, there's a very graphic metaphor of the nervous system, the limbic system, actually in specific, is designed to shut us down when we get too overwhelmed. It's literally there to just neutralize us. And so this metaphor that was given to me is like the sniper that's up in the tree, and the sniper's job is to shoot us with a tranquilizer when we overdo it to knock us out.
Mhm.
And so we have to avoid the sniper, because if we're like booking it, the
Yeah,
sniper sees us. The sniper's
yeah,
like, "Oh, you're overdoing it," right? And then we're
yeah.
out. We have to be like, "Okay, limbic system, okay, sniper, you this is okay. I'm taking one step. All right, now I'm taking another step." Like we have to kind of go at a pace where the limbic system doesn't go into that panic response and shut us down, because yes, when we get too into the big picture, and I totally get the big picture. I'm a big picture
Yeah,
person. But when we get too out there without the right supports, it's so overwhelming and the nervous system doesn't know what to do with it. So that's a great, yeah, like, okay, what um the test for this is, what do I feel like if you told me to go do it right now, I'd laugh and go, that's easy. I can do that.
hmm,
Because if you can have that response to it, it's not triggering that, like, oh my God, too much.
yeah.
So, okay, what is a small enough chunk of this that I literally laugh at how easy it's going to be for me to do that, and start there.
Mm,
That's okay. It's okay to
yeah,
start with, like, the, "You know what? Oh, I can clean the cough drops off my desk." Like, that's easy peasy. That's gonna take me 2 seconds, and I'm
yeah,
gonna go put them in the basket. Oh, now I feel positive because I did something that
yeah.
I was capable of doing. If I'm like, "I'm gonna clean my whole damn desk, I'm gonna scrub," oh my god, I'm gonna be like, "No, forget it. Too much," right? So, start with something that's small enough that you can laugh at it.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much.
It's just bringing more ease into our lives, right? Like,
Mhm,
life, the powers that be outside of us have not tried to make it simple for the average person,
mhm.
right? The
Absolutely.
99% to just access these things effortlessly. So really be so gentle with yourself with where you're at, and again, remember, like, 1% movement is enough.
Know your body. Listen to your body. It's been
Yes.
so important.
Yeah, less so than your mind, right? Because the mind gives us all these excuses and chatter, but it's like, what is my body telling me? Like, if our body's a little shaky,
Hmm.
feel a little scared, like, that can be okay. A little anxiety is inspiring. Too much anxiety is crippling. So
Hmm.
it's listening to those signals and discerning for ourselves, getting curious, like, what does this mean? And how do I
Oh,
learn to incorporate this, or see it as the signal that it is?
it's that line of like excitement and scaredness at the same time. It's like, oh, this scares me in a good way, but I'm also really excited about it, so I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, so important. So is there anything else that you can think of that you want to share
Mhm.
today? Tune into that as well. Hmm.
I think I don't know. There's nothing that's coming through as like a full sentence, but I think that self acceptance. There's really just it's this wholeness of body, mind, and soul. I know a lot that term gets used a lot, but it is really true. And so even me sometimes I get more focused on the mind than the body. One day I'll be so tuned in to my head that by the end of the day, my hips are hurting or my feet are hurting, and so it's speaking to me to pay attention.
Mhm.
And so just making sure that you get curious about each one of those categories about yourself, and um, reach out, or there's so many resources available, or if you have any questions for us, I know that, Safriana, you and I are always willing and excited to talk to people about, self-discovery. So I'm
Absolutely.
always here to, make connections and answer questions and, explore different resources that are available.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And yes,
Yeah.
absolute same. Taylor and I are both well houses of resources and wisdom to just share and pour out. And we've done the work ourselves. We're still doing the work ourselves. That is the
Oh,
thing. That's what I really want to leave in closing is there is no such thing as reaching a point of perfection where you're never going to have self-doubt or fear or anxiety or anything like that. That's part of our human journey. It's really being able to come and sweep back into anchor into that self acceptance, anchor into knowing you are worthy, anchor into I have my tools and I will use my tools when the time when I need them and the time that I need them. And just having that self assurance that you're going to show up for yourself time and time and time again.
absolutely. It's like activation toolbox.
And I get activated at least once a day, if not,
Thank you.
20 times a day. It's the okay, this is it. Instead of running away, instead of avoiding, I'm accepting this as a part of my experience. What do I want to do with this right now? Does it even need my attention right now? Or is it more of
Mhm.
a that's just a small little naggy part of me. I can breathe it in and breathe it out. Or is it really that lingering thing, but I don't have the time and resources to let me put it in my container and come back later? Or I need to sit my ass down and sit with this right here, right now, and just get to the bottom of why this is coming up.
Yeah,
Options.
absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this conversation. And yeah, if there's something that you'd like Taylor and I to teach together on, please feel free to let us know in a comment because we like having these conversations and just sharing our wisdom and our own journeys with you.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you
Thank
for those of you who tuned
you.
in. Let us know if you watch in the replay. Give us a hashtag replay. And until next time, goodbye for now.